Hello everyone, welcome back. In this video, we're just going to continue building our splash page. So in the previous video, we had built our splash page actual stateful widget class, the corresponding underscore splash page state class. And now in this video, what we're going to be doing is that we're going to be defining the build method for splash page state. So that's the method that is going to be responsible for actually building our actual splash page. So let's get going. So the first thing I'm going to do is that inside of the build method, I'm going to return a new material app. So we're not returning a scaffold, we're returning a material app. I'm going to give it a title and I'll call this flicked. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to give it a theme, and the theme is going to be of type theme data. And then inside of theme data, the only thing that I would like to define is going to be the primary swatch, and I'll call this colors.blue. And then I'll do Alt-Shift-F to reformat the code so it's easier for you guys to read. And then following that, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to define the home attribute for our material app. The home is going to have this thing called a center widget, which centers everything in the middle of the screen. Because if you remember, if I actually close our app, so just let me close our app and run it again, the completed version, obviously, that we have this logo in the center. So we're going to achieve that by doing center. And then inside of here, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to have a child. The child is going to be a container. The container is going to have a height and a width. So height of 200, width of 200. And then following that, the container is going to have decoration. And the decoration attribute is the attribute that is going to allow us to get the ability of actually displaying an image. So I'll say the decoration is of type box decoration. I'll do Alt-Shift-F just to reformat the code. And then inside of here, I'll define the image attribute, and the image is going to be decoration image. So define that. And then the decoration image is going to have a fit. So the fit just means how the actual image fits inside the container. We'll have to do boxFit.contain. That's the one that worked the best for me. And then finally the image, and this image is going to be of type asset image. So we're going to be loading it as an asset. So we're going to be providing a path, and the path is going to be the complete path. So that's the assets/images/logo.png file. I'm going to do Alt-Shift-F, and I'm going to also add the trailing commas because that helps with the formatting. I'm not going to do Command save. Now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go to my assets folder, then the images, and inside of this I'm going to actually drag and drop my actual logo.png file. So I'm going to copy it over, and you can get this from the GitHub repo, and I'm going to paste this in. So just give me 1 second to actually locate the actual logo file, and once I've located it, I'm going to drag it in. So I take my logo.png file and I put it into our images folder. So now it should be available as well. So once we have this, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go to my main.dart file. I'm going to make sure that everything looks good. I'm going to go to our test folder. I'm going to remove the test folder because we don't need any tests. So just remove it. And then I'm going to now run our application, fingers crossed, and see how it launches. So I'm going to let the build process go. I already have the simulator running, and once the application is up and running, I'll resume the video. Hello everyone, welcome back. So as you can see, the actual simulator has spun up. Our app is actually running on the simulator, and we're stuck on the splash screen, and I can re-verify that by just restarting our app, and you're going to see that we are just stuck on the app screen. In this lecture, we're going to be creating the other page for our application, which is going to be the main page of our application, and that is going to be the page that we're going to transfer over to once the initialization is completed inside of our splash page. So without anything further to do, let's get into it and let's see how to do that. So to get started, inside of my pages folder, I'll create a new file, and for this file, I'll name it main_page.dart. Once that is done, the next thing that I'm going to do is that I'm going to create a class inside of here, and this class is going to be my class responsible for actually generating the main page. So I'll call it class main page, and then it extends, and it's going to extend a thing known as a consumer widget. So we would do like stateless widget or a stateful widget in general use cases, but we are going to actually instead or extend upon a consumer widget. And for now, just understand that this consumer widget comes from the actual Flutter Riverpod library that we have actually included in our pubspec.yaml file. And inside of this class's build function, it's going to provide us another argument that we require, which is going to be a scoped reader. So that's all you need to know for now. And when we actually get to the point of actually using Riverpod and consumer widgets, as well as providers in general, we'll have a much more detailed talk on what this consumer widget does. But for now, just understand that for our build method, this actual consumer widget actually passes in another required argument to us, which is a scoped reader. And to get access to the scoped reader, you have to import the Flutter Riverpod package with the IDE did for me automatically, but that's something you have to do. So I'll call this scoped reader, and by convention, you call it watch. And once this is done, what I'm going to do inside of here is that I am going to return a function, which is going to be called _build UI. And then inside of this build UI function, inside of this class main page, I'm going to then create a function which I'll call widget, and then _build UI. And then what I'm going to do is that inside of this, I'm going to return for now an empty scaffold. And that's pretty much it. For the scaffolding and everything to work, I need to also import the material package, which was also imported by the IDE automatically, but I'm going to just kind of like organize my imports by putting these two under the comments of packages. So once this is done, that's all we need to do for our main page right now, because we just want to show a blank white screen, nothing else. So I'm going to go back to my main.dart file, and inside of my main.dart file, I'm actually going to define how we're going to go from our splash page to our actual other app. So the way this is going to work is that inside of our main function, you can see that we have this function called run app. And this run app function, what it does is that it creates our splash page, and then it passes for the onInitialization complete a function to be called. Inside of our onInitialization complete function called that we're passing, we'll call run app again. So we're going to spin up another app, which in Flutter will disregard the app that was previously running. And inside of here, what we're going to do is that we are going to run our my app. Inside of here, we're going to run our actual main application. But before we can get started by running our main application, I need to import the specific page. So I'm going to do /pages and then do /main_page.dart. Once that is done, the next thing that I'm going to do is that I am going to also define the actual class, which is going to be instantiated inside of a run app function. So I don't want to just like start off and instantiate just the actual main page class. I want some functionality of a material app provided to us by Flutter for my application, and hence I'm going to instantiate a new instance of a material app, and that's what I'm going to call my app. So I'm going to, underneath of the function, create a class, and I'll call this my app. You can call it main app, anything that you want, and it's going to extend stateless widget. Inside of here, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to firstly create the build method, and inside of the build method, I'm going to return a material app. So material app. And inside of this material app, I am going to now define some certain characteristics that our app requires. So the first one is going to be a simple one, which is a title of our application. So that's flicked. Following this, we'll have the initial root. So this means the initial root of the application, or the initial page that we're going to go to once this actual application is run. So keep in mind, this is the initial root that the application is going to go to once the run app is called on this class. And that is going to be our home root. So what's our home root, you might ask? Well, that's defined inside of our roots section, or the roots attribute for our actual material app. And that is going to be the key home, followed by the actual function, which is responsible for building the actual widget. So I'm going to call this build context, and then we'll get a context passed to us in the function. And what we're going to do is that we're going to return an instance of our main page. Once this is done, the next thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to define the theme. So the theme data for my application, so theme data, and then inside of here, I'm going to have two things. And I don't know why I added accent color, but it's going to be our primary swatch, which is going to be colors.blue. And then it's going to be our actual visual density. And visual density is going to be visual density dot adaptive platform density. So let me type it again, visual density dot adaptive platform density. and do Alt-Shift-F to reformat the code and Command save. And I can see that our main app is giving us an error, and that's because we're not doing anything inside of our run app. So now inside of run app, I'll tell run app to actually create an instance of my app and then run it. I'm going to add these trailing commas just to reformat the code nicely, and then I'm going to click on the reload function and see what happens. So as you can see, the onInitialization complete function is not called. And the reason for that is because we're not calling it anywhere inside of our splash screen page for now. So where do we call it? Well, we're going to call the actual onInitialization complete function inside of our init state function for splash page state class. So similar to how we are build function, we are also provided with an init state function, which is called init state, and we override this because this is a method of the base class state. And inside of here, we can do all sorts of things. For now, what I'd like to do is that I'd like to call the super.initState method, so the initState method on the super class. And following that, what I'd like to do is that I'd like to call widget, so that this widget keyword allows me to access properties inside of the parent class, which this corresponding state class is for, and then access any of the attributes. And what we want is the onInitialization complete function, and then just call it. So doing that, doing command save and reloading my application, fingers crossed, we should see that the splash screen goes away, and then we see this kind of an error. And this error is because we're not providing any kind of provider scope. The reason for that is because we're using the main.page, or we're using the main.page file inside of which we have the main page class, which extends a consumer widget. And since a consumer widget requires an access to a provider, or a provider scope actually, we need to somewhere inside of our build hierarchy of widgets include a provider scope. The recommended way to do this is to include it as a top level widget at the really start of the widget tree of our application at the very top. And the place we're going to do it is by encapsulating our My App application inside of a provider scope widget. So you might ask, wow, sounds tricky. How do you do that? Well, it's fairly simple. All you have to do first is that you have to import Flutter river pod. So Flutter _ river pod .dart would do the magic for me. I'm going to organize my imports as well by adding a comment to it saying packages. And then for my app, I'm going to put that inside of a scoped, or not a scope provider, actually a provider scope widget. And then for the child, I'm going to have that be the My App, and then I'm going to add my remaining bracket, do Alt-Shift-F command save, reload the application, and you're going to see that now we're shown with a white screen. But if we reload, you're going to see that it's just like so fast that we don't even see our actual splash screen. The reason for that is because nothing's happening inside of our initialization complete function, so it's practically instantaneous, and because of that, we just instantly go to our actual screen. But we can fix that fairly easily. All we can do is that we can have like a delay timer of a second where it shows the actual splash screen for a second and then it takes us. So we can kind of do like some kind of dummy waiting, if that makes sense, or like we can fake it. Like there's something happening. For that, what you can do is that you can do future.delayed and then pass in a duration object. The duration we want is going to be of 1 second. And once this future is complete, which is marked by the then method, we can actually do whatever we want. Since I don't require access to whatever value this future provides us, I'm just ignoring it by putting an underscore. And then I'm going to call the widget.onInitialization complete function inside of here, instead of calling it outside. And then I'm going to do Alt-Shift-F command save to reload the application, and then make sure that I reload the app. And you're going to see that we're showing the splash screen for 1 second, and then we go on to actually doing all of the stuff with the onInitialization complete. So with that, we've practically created our main page. We've linked our splash screen to our main page, and the basic control flow of application is working, where we're going to our splash page first, doing some kind of dummy initialization, and then moving on to our main page. And the process of which we do that is by first spinning up one app, which is solely responsible for showing us the splash screen, and then completely disregarding it, and then spinning up a new application, which actually runs our main application, which is encapsulated inside of a material app widget, which exists inside of our my app class. So with that, I'm going to end this video here, and I'm going to see you guys in the next one, where we'll continue developing our application and continue enhancing its functionality. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.